Call this meeting to order. Actually, I do have a couple of opening comments that I wanted to pass on. Barry's not here tonight, so I'm asking if this can get shared with Barry. I remember it was about 2 weeks ago, we got, I forget what it was, but it was one of those storms where we got about almost a foot of snow overnight. And it was probably 8:30 in the morning and I was coming back into town. And they were down by the lawn bowling. And they were blowing the snow into some dump trucks at that point. And as you drove into town, there wasn't a spot that wasn't already taken care of, cleaned up, cars coming into town. The public works is doing a great job with a winter that we hadn't seen in a long time, and I haven't heard any complaints, so my assumption is that the north end of the municipality is being treated just as well, so. Please pass that on to them. And also, I do have to comment on the off staff. So a little over a week ago, and I hope all of council got the memo that we got money for Goddard Street West, $2.7 million from the province. And it was really nice to get that phone call. And at the time I got the phone call, I was told I had it was less than an hour. If there was any chance you could get a press release put together, it had to be out that day at the end of the day. And so I got a hold of Barry, got a hold of Brad, and lo and behold, it was less than a half hour later. They had a very good press release put together and really appreciate it. And you know what? It's easy to say you can just give stuff to staff, but sometimes they have to drop everything they're doing to take care of something that just has to be done right then. And they do it when they need it. So I think people need to recognize that they do jump through hoops from time to time just to make sure that things get taken care of. I need a mover and a seconder to move into to reconvene an open session.
Sorry, we already did that for the public meeting, so there should be a note that that's already done.
Oh, I did.
So we'll just move on to your night acknowledgement.
Okay, thank you. We would like to acknowledge that the land we stand upon today is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the neutral peoples. Can I get a mover and a seconder to confirm the agenda, please? Moved by Councillor Wilby, second by Councillor Morrison, that the agenda for the regular meeting of council dated February 4th, 2025 be adopted as circulated. All those in favor? And motion carries. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest for this portion of the meeting? And it says on here that because Councillor Wilby and Dalton declared in the closed session for item 1.5, they are declaring it again. Just acknowledging of that. Thank you very much. Nobody else had their hand up, so can I get a mover and a seconder for the minutes of the previous meeting? Moved by Dalton or Deal, and second by Councillor Stefan, that the council of the municipality of Huron East approve the following council meeting minutes as circulated. The regular meeting of January 14th and the special council of January 23rd. All those in favor? And motion carries. The consent agenda. Are there any requests to remove an item from the consent agenda? Councillor Stefan.
I'd like to remove some questions regarding 8.1 fire department report, please.
I've got 8.1 as the municipal.
Oh, 8.10, sorry, 8.10.
Okay, okay.
My fault. Sorry.
Anything else that anyone wanted to remove? Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 8.2, the aggregate one, and I forget which one it is. It's about post office. Whatever number that one is.
8.8.
8.8, thank you. 8.2, because listening to it, it sounded like our government is giving a break to businesses that are profitable now and they don't need the break. And the one about the post office is how very, very important it is to maintain post offices in small towns and small communities to the vibrancy and vitality of the main street. So if we could send a letter to that effect, to whoever it concerns, I would appreciate it.
Okay, I was gonna do them in order, if that's okay.
Yep,
And I really thought we needed, 8.1. It was a very lengthy letter. It had a lot of good points in it, and I don't remember the whole thing. But, I certainly did agree with the overall sentiment that the province somehow needs to fix the financing that they're taking care of, because it doesn't seem to be keeping up. And, somebody needs to somehow review something, so I personally would like to see the 8.1. So I'll make a motion for support of the 8.1 letter. I do need a seconder, Councillor Fisher, thank you very much. If there's no questions on that, all in favor? I will support it. So 8.2, the municipality of South Huron, and Councillor Fisher, you're correct. The way that letter was written, it implied that certainly those aggregate companies are already profitable, and how come we're subsidizing and not subsidizing evenly across the province. So that is moved by Councillor Fisher. Is there a seconder for that letter? Moved, second by Councillor Chartrand. All those in favor? Thank you for that. Canadian Unionized Postal Workers, so that's moved by Councillor Fisher. Is there a seconder for that one? And second by Councillor Dalton. I do have a comment on this one. As far as the post office goes, Councillor Fisher, I agree 100%. I don't want to see them closed. I do have a problem in fighting them on this for two reasons. To me, it was too broad. I do not want to see the post office closed. I'm not sure that I feel there's a need for door-to-door service. Most of the people in the province don't get it, and that's one of the things that you have to include in it, if you include their letter, as it was presented to us. And I have a problem when the union coming to the municipalities to support their jobs. I hate to say this, but I saw a cartoon and, I had to laugh at it because I didn't notice a big difference. And the cartoon was when the post office went on strike. And the cartoon said, I didn't even know that they were on strike, that people hadn't even noticed the difference. Now, I certainly do appreciate the postal service, and as much as I can complain about them just as much as everybody else, I'm still amazed at the fact I can put a dollar stamp on a letter and a couple days later or a week later, it's in BC. I can't get a courier to do anything that cheap. But I do have a problem in supporting the union with everything they asked for. That's just my concern, Councillor Fisher. That's where I stand with it. I don't know if there's any other comments from members of council.
I thought there's a great deal of breadth to it as well, Mr. Mayor, but wanted if we could just concentrate on the ones that are pertinent to us.
Absolutely. If you just want to do something that basically specifies a few specific things, such as that the small town post office remain in place, things like that, then council has every right to send a supporting letter for that.
That was my hope, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so we would like to send a letter in support of keeping small town post offices open.
Because they are like a part of our, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay,
Yeah. Thank you.
and that was seconded by Councillor Chartrand. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor? And motion carries. And Huron East Fire Department, the annual report, 8.1, that was Councillor Steffler.
Yeah, just
Go ahead.
Mayor, I have a couple questions for Chief in the report. It looks, Jay, excellent report. Thank you very much. My third year here in council, the first time we really got a detailed report, so that's much appreciated, and thank you. Really knowledgeable for the public who can have access to this as well. 1 in 5 calls to the departments all over the 3 Huron department are false or, not legit calls. They're false calls or whatever. Is there a way, each call is approximately $500 for us to go out service and turn it around, doing the math, that's about $15,000 to $20,000 a year. Is there any way to tell, the parties, first comes free, no problem, but after that, we have the right to bill you for the cost and the time? I think you know, that would be beneficial. When 1 in 5 of our calls going out, costing that much municipality.
Absolutely. Through you, Mr. Mayor, we do have a fee for service in place that addresses just that. So your first call, like you said, was free, and beyond that, we have the right to bill to recover costs.
Are we billing?
Yes,
Okay, very good. So we are reclaiming some of those 29 calls
absolutely,
once.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Ray. If I can add on to that. Thank you, Jane, for the report. It was an excellent report. I thought it had very detailed. So it was a couple of things that popped out at me. When the different kinds of calls that you had logged there, there was a lot of others. What's an explanation of an other? And I'm sorry to put you on the spot for that, because it seemed like you had everything else covered, but there's a good number of other calls.
Right, and through you again, Mr. Mayor, so the criteria for calls and types of calls that we go to are outlined by the OFM. Anything beyond outside of the box, so if it's not a fire, if it's not a straight medical call, then it falls in the other categories. That could be anything from cat in a tree, not that we've ever pulled cats out of a tree, but just something that doesn't fall in one of those other categories.
Thank you very much. If I could just follow up too, in your report as well, you said 2025, you'll have all the training completed then? Did I read that? Like that's all the certification and everything?
So our goal, the way it is laid out, is that by 2025 December, we should have most of all of our base will be done. And be in a good shape by the end of 2025 for sure. And we've already started that. That was implemented January 1st, and the members are digging in and going hard at it. So
Thank you very much.
I only had one question, Jay, and maybe you answered it because I was focusing on trying to find it in here. On the one graph you had, it says CO false calls, there was 3, and then it's got another category, false calls, 29. And then that was the bar graph that you had, and I didn't understand what the heck is a CO false call compared to a false fire call.
So they're categorized into, through you, Mr. Mayor, they're categorized into like a fire alarm versus a CO alarm. So if we get a false alarm in a CO or an outdated alarm, for whatever reason we attend that call, that falls into the CO category. The 29 is false fire call, so alarm activations or failed detectors.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for that. Any other questions for this topic? Seeing none, can I get a mover and a seconder to accept all the other items on the list? Moved by Councillor Deal, second by Councillor Morrison, that the consent agenda items 8.3 to 8.7, 8.9 and 8.11 be received for information and approved. All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. Yes, 8.10 should have been included in that list because there was no motion from it. So. Okay, public meetings, hearings and delegations, the engineer's report, Valper Municipal Drain, Stephen Berkman, Headway Engineer. Welcome.
Thank you. Take it away.
Yes, go ahead, sorry.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to present. We have 2 reports here tonight. So one is the Balfour Municipal Drain. And the second one is the Municipal Drain number 5. The 2 of them are very, very similar. They're in very similar locations. They have very similar design concepts and a little different than normal. So the first one on the agenda here is the Balfour Municipal Drain. Could I ask for the next slide, please? And as normal, we prepared a bit of a slide deck to kind of walk our way through the drainage report here too. And Headway Engineering, we were appointed under section 78, and that was in September of 2022. And the purpose of that request was for improvements to the drain. More specifically, the request was for an enclosure. And we didn't go down the path of an enclosure. We went down and into a realignment of the system. Can I get the next slide, please? This slide shows the approximate location of the Balfour drain. It's on the north side of North Huron, and the watershed, or the call out on the left-hand side, shows the approximate location of the watershed. And there's a little red arrow toward the left, upper left corner, showing the realignment that we're talking about here. Can I go to the next slide, please? Several, sorry, several public engagements took place. So the first on-site meeting happened on February 16th of 2023. When we did our public engagements, in this case, in this project, one of the things that's a little bit different is that there's really only one landowner affected. So the on-site meeting was only with it's Bob Ness and his family. And same with the stakeholder meeting that was held on May 25th and on April 18th. But the first one, the February 2023 on-site meeting, that was where we really looked at whether or not it made sense to go down the path of doing an enclosure. And it was found that it really wasn't a feasible approach. So we went down the path instead of looking at a relocation instead. In May of 2023, we presented some preliminary details, and then following that, we presented more detailed information in April of 2024, which led to this report. Can I go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So a bit of the history on this project, on the Balfour. It's 120 years old, or when it was originally constructed, 1905. It was reconstructed about 68 years ago in 1957. And then there has been other work further upstream of our location. We're working right down at the very bottom of the drainage system, but the area where we're working is that 68-year age. Next slide, please. We go to the next one, actually. I'm going to flip forward into just the pictures. And this, so the Balfour, the word watershed, right above that is a little blue area. The Balfour watershed is actually that blue area. It equates to about 335 acres. And sorry, and
Water there for you.
oh, thank you very much.
There's water.
Yeah. So that blue area represents the Balfour watershed, but it outlets into a little the Little Maitland River is what it's called, your branch of the Little Maitland River. Because of that, we had to analyze the bigger river system, which is a significantly larger watershed, all the way including that pink area. In the next presentation I actually have it, but it's close to 30,000 acres. So we really had to look at the effect of the river system and how it impacts this enclosure area, which again, we went down the reroute option instead. Can I go to the next slide, please? So what we're recommending to do is relocate the drain instead of enclose it. We're abandoning the old alignment of the drain, enclosing that portion, and then using the fill of our realignment in order to fill the old drain and also fill some low areas around it. So can we go to the next slide, please? This image shows a picture of what we're doing, but the drainage system runs from east to west or right to left across this page. And we're proposing the orange alignment around the perimeter of the property and using that fill material to fill in the low areas that kind of skew across the property toward the left-hand side. This opens up the area to far more usable farming for the farmer or for the landowner and more accessible and everything. So could we go to the next slide, please? This, because of we're working in a river system, we actually had to step into some modeling work. And this is what's more interesting about the project. We don't normally have to do this. Here's the look of the model after we do the work we're talking about. So realign the drainage system kind of from the right and toward the left-hand side. And then we have some fill material toward the west side or the left, almost top center portion, blocking off a bit of a backwater effect, which would come from the river system. Again, these images are shown from the 10-year event. And they're the proposed result is what we predict here. Next slide, please. The estimated cost of the project for this Balfour is at $186,000. That's made up of the allowances, construction costs, engineering, etc. And the pie chart on the left-hand side shows a bit of a visual breakdown. Again, all the costs, not to talk too much about assessment tonight, but all the costs are assessed to the one landowner. And the project is entirely grantable too. Enclosure projects are not. So a relocation is. It's really a great opportunity to open up some access to some good farmland. And I think that's my last slide. Oh, sorry, it isn't. This is a picture of what the actual construction would look like, a typical trapezoidal cross section. And next slide, please. And this is my last slide. On the right-hand side, it's actually a drone photo showing the wetted area that would be filled in and everything like that. So if there's any questions on the Balfour.
First I'll go to the public. Is there any members of the public here that would be affected or would like to comment on this plan? Seeing none, any questions from members of council? None? Can I get a mover and a seconder, please, to accept the engineer's report? Councillor Deal, Deputy Mayor. That the council of the municipality of Huron East accept the engineer's report on the Balfour Municipal Drain 2025 and designate it as bylaw 6 of 2025. And that the quarterly revision be set for March 4th, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. and that Alvin McClellan, Diane Deal, and Jeff Newell be appointed as members with Alvin McClellan acting as chair. Just out of curiosity, when the quarterly revision is just to discuss costs.
It's the assessments, yes. So landowners have an appeal process where they can put in an appeal. And even though there's still the one landowner, we still have to hold the Board of Revision because of the Drainage Act, so.
Oh,
We may
okay,
not
because
get
that was
any
my
appeals.
question. What are you arguing against?
We may not get any, but we still have to technically hold the meeting. So.
Okay. All those in favor? Motion carries. Okay, next report, please.
Okay. Municipal drain number 5. It's a very similar concept. The difference between municipal drain number 5 and the Balfour, this one's significantly larger. So if we could advance into the next slide, please. Similar slide deck as before, we were appointed the same night as the previous report, and also a request for an enclosure, which went down the path of a reroute instead. Next slide. The location is pretty much right beside the Balfour municipal drain. Like again, this watershed is significantly larger. It expands into North Perth and Howick as well. And the work that we're proposing is on the extreme left of this corner in a little red box shown there. Again, right at the very bottom of this larger drain. And the next slide. The municipal drain number 5 is about 95 years old. 1930 is when it was last worked on in this particular location. There has never been any work done on this area in terms of a new report since 1930. And at that time, they completed about 13.5 kilometers of new open ditches and the construction of several branches as well. There may have been work in other portions of municipal drain number 5 upstream into North Perth and into Howick as well, but in this particular location, this is the last time work was done in 95 years ago. Next slide, please. The exact same meetings were held from before, so the on-site meeting from 2023 and then a follow-up meeting in also just a couple months later, and then our more detailed meeting in 2024. And the next slide. I'm going to skip this one as well. And this one has a few more details on the watershed, but the drainage system for municipal drain number 5 is that golden colored area. And the area kind of coming into the top of that drain number 5 is about 5,500 acres roughly. And the overall system again is just under 30,000 acres. So again, we're dealing with a river system here and just really ups the complexity when you're really trying to determine whether that flooding that you saw in that photos is coming from the golden area or from the pink. The answer is it comes from the pink. So it just takes the engineering work to go through that. The next slide, please. Again, some of the modeling that we did here, really happy with it too. So the photo on the right-hand corner is a drone picture taken from, it was the day of our first on-site meeting there, the February 2022, I think it was, or 3. And if you compare that, so that's actually taken right where the hand is sitting right now, looking toward the left. And how it lays out relative to the modeling work is really quite good. We're quite happy with how well it calibrated. And it gives us really good confidence in how well the modeling was done. The next slide, please. Here's a photo taken of the access to this area that is cut off by the existing drainage system. The pipe, you can see that on the left-hand side, its crown is exposed to the surface and it's constantly under a lot of water. It's very often wet in and around this area, preventing access to the area that is kind of taken out by the hook. Can you go to the next slide, please? So what this is better actually. That's better here. So the green alignment, this drainage system runs really from the top right to the bottom left. The green alignment represents the realignment of the system, and the gray shaded area represents where we just saw those photos. The area between those two is the area that's been cut off. about 9 acres is effectively isn't accessible for this particular landowner. And that's the real benefit of rerouting this drainage system and giving them connection to about 9 or 10 acres of land. So again, same thing as the Balfour drain, we're taking that excavated material and filling in that low area and bringing that area up in order to prevent basically a bit of flood proofing really. Next slide, please. And again, this is the predicted results following construction. So there is a bit of a berm to the left-hand side blocking the backflow of water coming in, and then just directing the municipal drain number 5 area around. It's really critical that we don't outlet in the same location. We actually have to outlet in a little bit higher location in order to prevent the backwater going in the channel, not out of the channel and into the low area. Next slide, please. The estimated costs for this one are higher, so $325,000. Made up of the same categories listed above: allowances, construction, engineering, environmental, and then the breakdown or pie chart shows the breakdown basically on the left-hand side. And the next picture. So this is the last slide for this one. It's looking from the bottom, looking upstream toward the very top of the up municipal drain number 5. That's right. Yeah. Any questions on drain number 5?
Are there any questions or comments from members of the public that this drain affects at this time? Seeing none, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Just through you. Just one landowner again? Or?
Yes. Oh, so there is one landowner is paying the cost of the project. There is another landowner affected who's actually receiving a little bit of allowance. So the drainage system needs to, when we reroute it and outlet it into the river area, there's a little stint there that is on somebody else's property. They're receiving an allowance, not paying.
Gotcha. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions of council? Seeing none, can I get a move and second here, please? Moved by Councillor Deal, second by Councillor Wilby, that the council of the municipality of Huron East accept the engineer's report on the municipal drain number 5, 2025, and designate it as bylaw 7 of 2025. And that the court of revision be set for March 4th, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. and that Alvin McCullen, Diane Deal, and Jeff Newell be appointed as members with Alvin McCullen acting as chair. All those in favor? And motion carries. Stephen, thank you very much for your reports.
Thank you.
Down to planning report, cart lock control exemption PLC 06 of 2024. Welcome, Shane. Welcome back.
Thank you, Mayor. So this application is for parallel control exemption PLC 06 2024. The owner of the property is June Snellgrove and the applicant is Frank Cameron's law office. The property is located at 5153 Victoria Boulevard in Van Astra. Next slide, please. So just an aerial of the property location. So we're kind of on the northeast or southeast corner of Van Astra in the residential area. Outlined in orange, there is the property. There's an existing semi-detached residence constructed on the site, and that was built around 1947. Next slide, please. So the applicant is requesting to exempt the property from parallel control to allow for the conveyance of 2 separately conveyable parcels, each with 1 unit. Sorry. The proposed lot will create a dividing line along the common party wall within the units. So here's just a picture from the spring of what the property looks like. So there's separate services on both sides, separate driveways, an existing semi-detached here. Next slide, please. And here's the reference plan that was submitted with the application. You'll note that this reference plan was dated in 1980. So there was actually an original consent application that was submitted to do the exact same thing proposed here to split the units into 2. That application was never completed as the deed was never transferred. So the applicants are now looking to sell 1/2 of the building and looking to split it. So in this case, as it's a complete lot in a registered plan. There's an existing semi-detached building, built on the property. We're able to use part lot control here. And just as a note, since this, building was pre-existing and is due to the age of the building, we had the building department conduct an inspection of it to just ensure that all fire separation building code requirements were met. So our inspector went on site, there was a few minor things that needed to be upgraded. Those maintenance and repairs have since been completed, and the inspector has done a final inspection and signed off. And there's no further concerns with building code compliance.
Any questions of council? Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Chartrand, second by Councillor Dalton, that the council of the municipality of Huron East consider a bylaw to provide for part lot control for Registry Plan 131, Lot 154, being parts 1 and 2, reference plan 22R-1270, 51 to 53, Victoria Boulevard, Vanastra. All those in favor? And motion carries. And 10.2, planning report, minor variance MV 05.
Great, thank you. So this is an update on minor variance application MV 05 2024. This application originally came back to council for its public meeting in December, on December 17th of 2024. We're bringing it back with some votes to council today. So just as a refresher, the owner and applicant is Tom Bender and the project 40504 Walnut Road. Next slide, please. So just an aerial photo of the subject property. We're located just south of Kippen on Walnut Road, and Chiselhurst Road is just to the right there. So just as a refresher, the original variance requested, 2 variances were requested with the original application. One to reduce the required MGS2 setback for a new livestock barn to the house to the northeast of the proposed barn, as well as a reduction to the MGS setback for the barn to the house to the west. So at our public meeting on December 17th, there was some neighbor comments and requests received to consider a location further to the east, from the neighbor to the west, to consider a location further to the east to reduce the impact of the proposed barn on a potential future ARU that they were looking at their preferred location at in an existing shed on their property. And so at that meeting, council directed staff to reach out to the other neighboring landowner that may be affected and make sure that they were fully aware of what this requested change would mean for that property and the impacts and potential implications on them. So we've had a chance to discuss further with both landowners and are coming back with some updates on that. So this first image I've shown here shows the original barn location. So that's the box in green. And a proposed setback to each house. So that's as originally proposed, 507 meters to the house to the west and 525 to the house northwest. The green circle here shows a setback of 576 meters, which is the required NDS1 setback that would apply to any detached additional residential unit on either of these properties. The blue circles on top of each of the houses there represent a 60-meter radius from each house where our zoning bylaw permits a detached additional residential unit. So that's kind of the range that they're looking at for potentially being able to place a detached unit. So as you can see here, the MDS1 setback, which is what would apply for those new detached units potentially, does leave a location for each property to potentially construct. There's a small sliver of each radius outside of the required MDS1 setback. On the next slide, please. So this next image shows the proposed alternate location. So this is the location The barn moved approximately 40 meters east of the original location. Resulting in a setback of 47 meters from the house to the west and 505 meters to the house to the northeast. And then again, the red circle here shows the 576 meter MDS one setback that would be required for potential additional residential unit. And then the yellow circles kind of around the edge there show the roughly the approximate MDS one setbacks that apply to other livestock barns in the area, just to see if there was any other impacts from those existing barns. So this location would provide the western property with more options for potential ARU outside of the required MDS one setback, including their preferred location, which is within the western half of the existing shed. And then the bottom corner of the image there, just on a call out, so you can see where that setback line is drawn. So the west half of the shed is outside of the setback, the east half is still within it. Next slide, please. So just zoomed out a little bit here so you can see a couple of the other surrounding livestock barns and the approximate MDS one setbacks that those barns throw. So the two barns to the west do not appear to impact the western property owner, while the large dairy operation to the north, that appears to already impact the house on the northeast of the barn. Next slide, please. So just in looking at other locations that were considered as part of this process, so the owners do own another property on Kippen Road. And we looked at potentials for locating the barn here. It is just outside of the Kippen settlement area, so settlement areas throw a double distance for MDS. So that's why there's quite a large red circle from the eastern extent of Kippen. As well, there's another severed AG4 property on Morrison Line there that would further restrict livestock barn on this property. So as of right, there would be no potential for a livestock barn here, and the MDS reduction required would be quite significant, just in looking at other options. Next slide, please. So in looking for additional comments from the neighbors, additional input from the neighbors to the northeast, Jeff Alderdice was requested that additional public meeting. So I had a chance to contact the landowner and explain some of the changes resulting from the public meeting and explain the potential implications and impacts to their property. Upon further consideration, this neighbor noted their concern with the proposal in general, and were not in favor of the proposed change to move the barn further closer to their property. And this came up considering potential future long-term plans for their property. The neighbor noted concerns with overall compatibility of livestock barns in the area, in proximity to their house, and the cumulative impacts of multiple livestock barns within proximity of their house. And then for the neighbors to the west, we've had further discussions with them, and they've noted concerns with the original location. The proposed alternate location was their preference and would provide opportunity for a detached ARU and their preferred location, which is within the existing shed. Just keep in mind that they could still apply for a detached ARU in this location. It would just require their own minor variance application. Next slide, please. So looking at the additional review, the original location results in odor impacts from the new barn on both properties. However, this was the most kind of middle ground approach that minimized impacts equally to both properties. And a detached ARU could still be constructed on either of those properties without a variance needed. The property to the northeast is already impacted by the proximity of an existing dairy barn, as I noted. So that may be a potential impact, but it wouldn't be further impacted by the placement of the new barn. And the alternate location increases the odor impact to the property to the northeast and reduces it to the property to the west. So the alternate location would now require an MDS1 reduction for the new barn to the property to the northeast. As I noted, it may already be impacted, but we're introducing the impact for this change. Next slide, please. So public comments raised at the public meeting and discussions with landowners since then have been considered. And do not change the analysis of the four tests of a minor variance and the policies outlined in our official plan and zoning bylaw. As a result, the analysis outlined in the original report, and I've included it in this report as well, is still applicable. And as a result, I'm recommending the minor variance be approved as originally applied for. And I'm here for any further questions.
I will take a mover and a seconder first before we go to questions. Do I have a mover? Deputy Mayor and a seconder, Councilor McGrath. That the Council of the Municipality of Huron East acting as Committee of Adjustment has held a public meeting pursuant to section 45 of the Planning Act 1990 with respect to minor variance application MV 05-2024. Okay. Whereas comments were received from the public regarding potential impacts to the property, and whereas no agency comments were received, now therefore the Committee of Adjustment approves the minor variance application MV 05-2024 concession 3 London Road Survey Part Lot 11 Tucker Smith Ward to permit the following variance from bylaw 52 of 2006. That the variance applied is valid for a period of 18 months from the date of the committee's decision. The proposed, and number 2, the proposed structure be constructed as per the site plan submitted with the application to the satisfaction of the chief building official. Comments or questions from council? Councilor Deal.
This is the original proposal.
The motion that he just read is for the original.
Thank you.
proposal, yes.
Any other comments? All those in favor? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I would say that carries. Thank you very much. I can ask for opposed. People wish to raise their hand. Opposed? 1, 2, 3. Okay. 4 opposed. We are down to municipal drains, number 11.
This was just the tender report for the Huron, Holland, Anderson drains. So the same engineering firm that just did the presentations for Balfour and municipal drain number 5. They also did the Brewer, Holland, Anderson. So those were submitted. Closing date of January 28th. So we received 7 for both drains, 7 submissions for both drains. There was just a note in the report that originally DeJong Excavating had a lower price for the brewery municipal drain. However, going through the analysis from the engineer, they just caught a few parts that were missing, which brought their price back up. So we're recommending Hannah and Hamilton for the brewer drain and DeJong Excavating for the Holland Anderson drain.
Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Chartrand, that the Council of the Municipality of Huron East award the contract associated with the Brewer Municipal Drain to Hannah and Hamilton for the amount of $198,823.75 plus HST. And that the Council of the Municipality of Huron East award the contract associated with the Holland Anderson Municipal Drain to DeJong Excavating for the amount of $83,877 even plus HST. All those in favor? And motion carries. Reports and recommendations of municipal officers, and number 1 is 12.1 Emergency Management Program and Response Plan Bylaw. Can I get a mover and a seconder to start this process? Moved by Councillor Deal, second by Councillor Morrison, that the Council of the Municipality of Huron East consider a bylaw to enact an emergency management program and emergency response plan. Guess we're just doing a bylaw. Did anybody have any questions? There was a lot of information in there. Seeing none, all those in favor? And motion carries. 12.2, establishing a regulatory bylaw review. People raise their votes. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Wilby, second by Councillor Deal. That the council of the municipality of Huron East consider a new establishing and regulatory bylaw for the Huron East Fire Department. All those in favor? Motion carries. And temporary borrowing bylaw. Welcome to our new treasurer. Making us get money already. Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Newell, second by Councillor Fisher, that the council of the municipality of Huron East consider bylaws for the 2025 temporary borrowing and interim tax levy. All those in favor? Motion carries. Seaport Community Hospital Foundation, number 12.4, fundraising event. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Chartrand, second by Councillor Dalton, that the council of the municipality of Huron East consider the request from the SCH Foundation and organizers of the Matt Huther tournament for grant funding to cover. Sorry,
that's supposed to be grant funding.
okay, grant funding, thank you. To cover potential facility fees at the Seaforth and District Community Center. Comments or questions? Councillor Steffler.
Yes, thank you. We are going into our granting period, our budget, we increased our budget to 25,000, I believe. I'm very in favor of this, but I think it should fall into that pool as opposed to just unilaterally voting it into this pool. There are lots of other tournaments, there are lots of other things with great causes that I want to support. And we have 25,000 for this exact recommendation, so that's where I would like to see that fund go to and have a discussion at that time.
Very good point. Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This tournament, it's all adults, it's not kids who need their parents' support, etc. I think it should go to the $141 per hour. And it has to, we have to do something with a grant, that's fine, but I think we set a dangerous precedent if we go any lower than that, because there's several other tournaments that don't come to us for support. And if they hear about this one, it'll be a parade, I think, so. I'm comfortable with the 141, not the $70. Thank you.
Okay, and Deputy Mayor.
Well, I think the comments have been basically made already. I worry about setting it down to the 141 to, I'd sooner keep it at 1 and have them apply for a grant or something. I think that's the proper way to do it. Not that I'm against any of this, but I'm afraid we'll have more and more, and they're all good causes, so they are. So I just, that's the only thing that I worry about.
I have to ask staff, there's been a suggestion that we move this to the grant process of budgeting, which does seem very appropriate. I did call for a mover and a seconder already. What are the options available here?
Just a clarification, so make sure it's 114 is what we're talking about.
Okay.
114, right, not 141.
Yeah, I had the numbers backwards, thank you.
That's okay.
So it's 171, 114, and
172, 114 or 70. So the original rate is, the regular rate is 172. The minor rate is 114 and they're asking for 70.
thank you.
Process wise, we'll have to deal with the motion as you already read it, and then we can talk about other options if that's not carried.
Okay. So, oh, go ahead, Jeff.
Just, so they can apply for this. Is there a limit on groups that apply, the number of times they can apply to run an event? So if this was like for 2 tournaments from the same organization, could they apply for 2 different grants, or is it a one-time only?
I will turn that over to the CEO.
Yeah, we haven't we haven't got a final grant program, so we kind of default back to what your old grant program was, which was basically saying, yeah, you could, but you had to provide financial records, yada, yada. The new grant program that we proposed originally did talk about limitations. We have redrafted it. We did some consultations with it. We have not brought it back to council. Basically, it was just saying that pretty much just, you could apply for a program. There was a program funding stream and then there was a capital stream. All within that 25,000 that council would have. So if we're gonna move forward with that, I mean, that's what staff are actually recommending with this, is that it be drawn from that grant program. How they're applying it is appropriate. Again, it's, you know, up to council to decide what the level of the grant should be. Whether it's the full request or not at all, or a partial request. That help?
Mhm.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, the way the motion is worded, I think it's up for direction from council, the way it's saying to consider the request. So I think we need to massage the motions for what council decides on that consideration, if it's, as Brad mentioned, for the level with which amount they're setting.
Okay, so, could I incorporate Councillor Stepler's suggestion into the motion as, not discussing the actual amount, but that it will be discussed as part of the grant process through budget?
That could be the first one, yep, and see how, if that's the way they want it. That would be part of the consideration that it comes back through the grant process.
So I believe that's the way I read it. So, go ahead, Councillor Stepler.
Thank you. Just for clarity, this request is coming from the Seafood Community Hospital Foundation on behalf of the Matt Heater tournament, I believe, the way I read it. So they would qualify through the Seafood, like the way our proposition is for that grant as well. If it is our granting stream versus a private entity coming in. And so I think it does fit.
All right, so if I understand the motion at this time is there's been a request for some assistance from the municipality, and that we're asking that this be forwarded to the grant process through the budgeting, the grant program through the budgeting process. All those in favor at this time?
Question if I may, Mr. Mayor, please.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. I think in a tournament, it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. 20 hours at $100 an hour, that's 20 grand right there. Would we be discussing a maximum and a minimum when it comes to our grant discussion then?
Council can discuss whatever they want to when it comes up as the discussion during the budget process.
Okay, and then if I may, is Mr. Marion here this evening?
Lisa said,
Mr. Berard is.
No, I chatted with Ms. Bird about this. I had a question from Mr. Marion about this tournament a couple of years ago causing damage. I just wondered if that was all rectified. Thank you.
Is there any confusion with council of what the motion is at the moment? Seeing none?
It's not real clear, just read it again.
Okay, so the motion is that we will consider the request when we get to the budget process and the grant portion of that process.
So this has to wait till that happens.
Correct.
right,
Okay, just so they're clear.
Councillor Stepler?
Yeah, so just for clarification, just because there were, for this year, there were past arrangements from what I've been understood, I wasn't on council, that the past arena board allowed a lower rate than what the going rate was, so minor versus that. I think it's important for good faith that that's continued for this year. I think because then we're changing the playing field. But I think we have to clarify that this evening, if what rate are we charging for the ice, because there was a handshake agreement back when the tournament originated at the minor rate. And now, you know, if we go up to the 140 to 170, I just don't want anything lost in communication of where they're coming from. So not that it matters, it's just there was an arrangement prior. This is, I think, according to the 7th annual or whatever, the 5th annual, just so that everything's consistent and we're not changing playing fields with a prior agreement in place.
Okay, I'm concerned about that information because our rates had already been up before this year started. So everybody should have been aware of that. And if we pass this, that we're gonna discuss it during the grant process, then there is nothing else to discuss at this point. We can't set a rate now.
Well, I get, so last year we had different rates for adults and children, or, you know, whatever. I guess the question that I would have is, what did we charge last year? Because everything was still the same. So now if they came back for a request, we're really adding their costs this year if we go up to the adult rate, which probably should be, it's an adult term, but that wasn't what the agreement was when they came originally with the prior arena board. And I think, and I don't know this, I think this is for staff to go back to check what rate they've been paying previously. And then I think we gotta really sit back and, you know, I just don't want it to come across that, you know, now we're going to a unified front. You know, 2 weeks ago or last week, there was a tournament in Brussels. Next week, there's a tournament here. Agreements are made in the past, but are we gonna break an agreement that was already in place with this tournament when they went in their inception for their budget this year?
Okay, so my concern is that if staff were not aware of the fact that this information was being requested tonight, I wouldn't expect them to have it at their fingertips.
Correct.
So to set the rate this evening, I think is asking too much of council without good information.
Fair.
I'm gonna suggest you could still pass the motion that is on the table. And even before we get to budget meeting, if in fact good information can come back to the next meeting, council has the authority with a 2/3 vote to say, you know what? If we had had this information, we might have made a change to it. They can raise it from the table and make a change at that time.
I'm just making people aware.
Okay, no, that's good. Councilor Newell?
I'm just thinking that not having the grant program in front of me to know where we're at, I think this may just open up a lot of applications for our grant, and I think for granting opportunities, and I think it's gonna be a challenge of us having to weigh out what is we each individually feel is a more important cause over another cause. And as Deputy Mayor said, this is a really great cause, so I don't want to say anything bad about that. But if we have 4 or 5 of them, we're gonna have to make a pick. So I think it's just, the floodgates may open a little bit with this, so just my concern.
It's a really good point, and that's why I think one of the key points that we discussed in our policy, and I think it was in the previous one, and I don't know if it's going to be in the new one, was typically if whatever group it was had an opportunity to go to the public on their own, then council always frowned upon also being a donator to that, because then some people were getting double thing. That was always, I thought, an important criteria to review when we got a grant application. It's like if you've got the Cancer Society that literally goes door to door, knocking on doors, asking for donations, and then shows up at town hall asking for donations. That doesn't seem fair when people have the opportunity to give on their own. And then you're asking them to give through their taxes, which they don't technically have any control over. So I always thought that was a good distinction in our policy. Again, I don't know if that's going to be in the new one, but that's up to council to decide when we actually vote on it. But I do appreciate the point you're making, Deputy Mayor.
Oh, no, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess my point was, Councillor Stafford brought up, there was a previous agreement made. I'd like to know more about that agreement, if I would.
I think after we take this vote, we should ask staff to bring that information to the next meeting.
And I mean, if that's the case, if there was a handshake agreement, are we missing other handshake agreements that's been already done?
And that I can't answer at this point. Councilor Gill?
I don't recall them ever applying for the grant before, so I wonder, was it just a reduction then?
Again, I can't answer that, nor was I part of the board. If it was the board that dealt with it in the past.
I just don't remember seeing their name on the list of,
I agree.
thank you.
So all those in favor of the motion, and that motion was the one to move this to the grant and budget process. All in favor? Motion carries. I do agree, whether Councillor Steffler or the Deputy Mayor want to just move it and second it, but ask staff to bring back any information on if in fact there was anything in place with this group. You're moving.
I'll make that motion, please.
Okay, and second by the Deputy Mayor. All those in favor? And motion carries. Was that clear enough with that? Okay, thank you. We are down to council member reports. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At our last county council meeting was on January 22nd. It was to be held by Zoom. We're just nicely back from Roma Convention. It was fairly light agenda, but we did go through the other half of our budget. Some of the topics that we covered were public works and EMS and homes for the age. There was a few more items added to our parking list. We do have a budget meeting coming up, I think, not tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow. It will be solely budget, so I can give you a little bit of an update on that. And I just wanted to thank council for giving me the opportunity to attend the Roma conference in Toronto. It was very interesting. Couple of things I took from that was there was certainly a new financial framework was the talk of the convention. So there was, everybody was sort of after that, realizing that it needs to be fixed. We're being asked to fix problems that we can't, anywhere from family doctors to emergency room closing, homelessness. Also, Roma is working on drainage works near railway corridors too. That's a bit of an issue. I don't think we have any issues with railways, but it could be in over here as well. So Doug Ford, he was there on the Monday morning, spoke of all his government's accomplishments in the term, and certainly was in and around the edges that there was an election coming for sure. Rob Black was there, the Minister of Ag and Food. He spoke on the importance of agriculture in Ontario. It creates 1 in 9 jobs is agriculture. 51 billion in gross domestic product. It's bigger than the car industry, tech, and mining. An interesting session I went to on Monday afternoon was all about cybersecurity. It was a real eye opener. Gentleman there was Dan Matheson. He was the former mayor of Stratford, and then they got hacked back in 22, I think, or something like that. It was a Sunday morning, and somebody went in to turn on something, and it went from there then. So, but it was interesting. He said they called the police, and I believe the RCMP, they called them as well, and they had insurance for cybersecurity too. But he said when the insurance company came in, they took over everything. You answer to them. They did everything. The police said don't pay the ransom because they got a ransom note that they were supposed to pay. But the insurance company said yes, we're paying for it. So, but what it was interesting. So the insurance company they contacted Deloitte, the accountant firm. And the accountant firm, Deloitte, they actually go on the dark web. They find the people that's holding the stuff hostage and figure out if they're a good bad guy or a bad guy. Then they actually negotiated with them to get the ransom down, and they paid it. But that's how it went. So it was kind of an eye opener. So one thing that they said is never make a statement at council that you're satisfied with IT. Never say it. Because guess what? He says all of a sudden he says you got a bullseye on you. Anyway, so it was pretty interesting. A couple of points that he made was he says you gotta realize or how important is it for you to be able to register your kid on for swimming lessons, because every port like that is a way in. So he says, make sure your IT firm or whoever looks after it is on top of that stuff. So it was pretty interesting. So I'll leave it like that.
Very good report. Thank you for that. Are there any other boards, committees, meetings, or seminars that anybody has any comments on at this time? Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was gonna delay my Roma report till the next meeting because I thought we'd be going late and Deputy Mayor and Councillor Willoughby and Councillor Steffler would have a large volume of items. And if you believe that, I'll have mine for next meeting. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councillor Steffler.
Yeah, just an update on the OPP board that I sit on with that Ryan said was the first time he was at the meeting. I passed the budget over to CAO and treasurer just to see it. It's quite substantial. And it's something that I think we look at. It's very worthwhile. But it's a big cost. So just, you know, it's good and there's a lot of positives in it, a lot more proactive policing going on, a lot more community engagements for proactive versus reactive. I wouldn't say a surplus of officers, but catch up that we're at full capacity now. And crime seems to be down, major crime is down in Huron County throughout the calendar year, so.
Are there any requests by members of council this time? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd asked or mentioned about committees at our last meeting. I would see that wasn't on the agenda.
No, you're right, it was not on the agenda. I only had two comments. And I apologize, I was gonna make a call, based on the one phone call. The one said, happy with everything the way it is. The only other one was, and I should have had this call in private, but I'll do it now. The deputy mayor phoned and said that there was one of the committees that he sits on that he's happy with, no problem there. But that Councillor Dalton had commented that if the opportunity came up, she would like the opportunity to take that committee, and I can't remember which one it was. Sorry. Administration, yes, thank you. We do only meet at best usually once or twice a year, but the deputy mayor has offered up his seat if you in fact would like to join that committee for the next time there is a meeting.
This is a surprise, so I might have to think about that. But I did talk to Deputy Mayor about that, so if that's an opportunity, sure.
Okay, well then, we might as well just accept the fact, I will call the vote. Because although I do pick them, I do put it through council to approve it. So the only change to the current standing list, Councillor Stephanie.
Yeah, I've sent it as well, that I would, for water and sewer, I would like to step back and allow Councillor Fisher to go. I've talked to Councillor, it's just time commitment and all that. It's just probably better suited for Councillor Fisher for the remainder of the term on that, being in the Seaforth ward. Yeah, he's said he would.
Okay.
If that's okay with powers to be.
I don't have any problem with that. It's pretty straightforward. It's the numbers and having a history is always beneficial when it comes to water and sewer for sure. And the fact that you sit beside Larry, he'll keep you tuned in.
I'll be driving.
So I will make the motion that we are moving Councillor Fisher to water and sewer, removing Councillor Steffler, and moving Councillor Dalton to the administration committee and removing the deputy mayor from that position. Any other comments or questions? I need a seconder. Councillor Chartrand, all in favor? Motion carries. Are there any sorry, Councillor Wilkins.
Since Bob pointed it out and I won't be here at the next meeting. I'd like to thank council for allowing me to go to Roma, and I did sit in on an interesting nursing home presentation, and having worked in three different nursing homes. What they were saying did not apply to any nursing home in this area. I think it was more Toronto, that they weren't getting fed properly. And never in the 25 some years I worked had that ever happened in our area, but it is a concern if that is occurring. And they were also concerned about the staff that they get. What's the name of it now? The agency people. So that was something I sat in on, and I did enjoy the keynote speaker too. And I know her name, but I can't think of it right now. Chantel, she was very good.
Yes.
Was thrilled to hear her.
If I can ask one question, with that panel, was that municipally operated or were those private homes?
I think they were private. And the lady was quite emotional about it. And it was also was comments a lot from, French, people that were there, so I don't know if it was. Um, I just felt that it had nothing to do with our area, so.
Counselor Stecker.
Yeah, so we attended the same breakfast and she was Donna Duncan from the OLTCA, so the Ontario Long-Term Care Association. Just had an overview of problems that they kept facing and they're going more to hub models of, you know, concurrent systems being close by, working together as teams because there's just not enough money coming in. So that was part of what they're lobbying and mainly like Councilor Wilby said, the private, when you're making it for profit as opposed to public, but there was a general concern of neglect to clients. But it was OLTCA that was the chair of the meeting.
Counselor Sharp.
Yes, could you please give us an update on how your two delegations went at Roma?
Oh, I thought we did the last meeting, didn't we?
Okay,
Okay, so the first one with infrastructure, did not have a warm and fuzzy feeling when we left the room. It doesn't mean that we won't get something, but it didn't feel positive. The second one, never felt more positive than that second delegation in all the years I've been doing it.
you mentioned a little bit of it at your beginning of your, you know, you'd make comments, but we never really got into the detail of the meeting itself. How it went.
There was just a little bit of a shocker at the end of the first one, which really set the tone. Unfortunately, that was at the end of the meeting, and that's a bad time to set the tone. So. Okay, are there any notices of motion at this time? Seeing none, any announcements by any member of council? Councilor Morrison.
2 weeks ago, on behalf of the municipality, I brought greetings to the Brussels Lake Society's annual general meeting. They talked about fairs and the upcoming fairs in Brussels. I did reiterate the comment you made a couple meetings ago about Brussels and the fall fair and sharing that to other groups and stuff with meetings that you were a part of. They're very grateful of that acknowledgement, I guess you could say. But other than that, our greetings, all was good.
Okay, thank you very much. 16.1. Oh, yes, other business, 16.1. I'm gonna leave this to the CAO.
Yeah, so we have been issued an order by Huron Public Health, specifically stating that until we do such changes to our siren and so forth, to reduce the decibel levels, it's to be shut off. So it was shut off effective as the order was issued, and the switch for the sirens has been posted with the order so that no one will inadvertently turn it back on. So I'll speak a little bit about, I've had some conversations with our fire chief. One of the options that we will look at, of course, is obviously do nothing, which would mean leave it off is one option. We will look at an option whether or not there's a means, I guess, to replace, repair, reconfigure the siren to make a lesser noise. We've also talked about the alternative of looking at more of a silent warning system that I don't know if I'm aware of it anywhere else. I think can't say I've seen it, but whereby we would set sort of postings with green flashing lights at perimeters. We probably wouldn't be able to post it at the intersection. Just because it's a connecting link and MTO is pretty restrictive on what you would put there. But maybe we just put something up, which is just a green flashing light that runs for 20 minutes after this, when the siren would have gone or after the page comes through, which lets all drivers know there's a green flashing light. We can have signage that indicates what that means. It will last for 20 minutes, which is better than what a siren would do. I don't know what the cost would be. I mean, it's not technology, quite frankly, that is not available. Whether or not it's off the shelf, I can go buy it, I doubt it. But, the chief and I will look at those options to see if we can bring back something to council. And what those costs would look like and what that might look like in terms of implementation. If we're truly concerned about both public safety and firefighter safety, I think the green flashing light approach is probably the right course to take. I just don't know what the cost would be. You're probably looking at, at least 4 to 6 posts with green flashing lights on it. Probably solar powered somehow. Would suspect we put them on electrical current. But I'm not sure what that would cost, but it'd be, I'm thinking it's gonna be in that same neighborhood that we probably would have paid to put those posts up that have the speed warning sign on it, very similar. Maybe a little bit more expensive because we'll have to have transmitters in the middle, pick up a signal. Once the page goes out, to be able to pick that up and signal the lights go on. Once the lights go on, set on a timer. Once the timer expires, the lights go off. That's the concept. So those are kind of what we're looking at from a staff perspective. We're open to any other suggestions that council might have, but I think those are what's been considered so far.
Your hand isn't up, Larry, but I know you're gonna say something, so I'll go to you first.
I just. No 4-letter words, two people that shut off the siren. We have drug epidemics, we have people freezing in the street, we have people starving, and this is what we choose to spend our health money on. Really, it goes, what would you say, Ray? It was, how many times was it in 1 week? I haven't heard in a couple weeks. I'm sorry, I just think this is utterly ridiculous, but unfortunately, we've been issued an order. And ought to be done, I'm not in favor of putting the green. The flashing green lights won't mean anything to anybody, other than oddly when they're coming into town, they'll say, isn't that pretty? What's that all about?" And, yeah, I just, it boggles my mind, how far people will go to pursue something as frivolous as something that goes once or twice a week.
I will respond to that, and I'll take that as a valid argument for the initial complaint. But once the complaint was in the HPPH hands, they had no choice but to follow through according to their rules and regulations. The fact that the initial complaint happened, that's a different story altogether. Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The green light doesn't really grab me, but is the proposal that it be like 100 meter circle of the fire department, and would it also pertain to Ethel and Brussels? I would like to see a cost comparison between a lower decibel siren and the green light presentation, I guess, if that wasn't too onerous for staff, please, thank you.
That's our intent to bring back a report presenting those options to council.
Thank you.
Councillor Chartrand.
Yes, if I recall the actual decibel readings when she made her decision on this, we were right at that, just at that mark. If that siren was 0.02 decibels lower, we wouldn't be talking about this. So if there's a way that you can lower the sound by a half a decibel or 1 decibel, you're not spending a whole lot of money.
By pillow.
Yeah, and I did have that conversation with Dr. Clausen, and she said, if you could drop it 5% as far as the noise rating goes, she says, it all goes away.
Exactly.
End of story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Way to muffle that siren to get it down, when they come back out and do their testing, and away you go.
Councillor Stefan.
Yeah, so same thing, exactly. Green lights, I don't think so, personally. Put a baffle or something just around the perimeter of the thing, you'll deflect enough of the noise from the person. Probably 2 wind panels or deflector panels would solve our thing, because like Councillor Chartrand said, we're within that close of being within compliance. And I couldn't say it better, I will stand on my grave, I will not let 2 people change it, or we'll have everybody here going to print, and we'll never have anything again. We've got to stick up for what our small town believes in.
I was just gonna comment, thanks, on the green lights. I don't know, unless they're common around the province, I think they would be like, what is going on in Seaforth? We have green lights flashing, we've got our crosswalk, we've got our lights that don't know enough to switch the north end of town, so I think we're just adding more confusion to Main Street or wherever we would put them. They're not very common, I don't think, out there.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that. 16.2, a verbal report here in East Realtor.
Yes, council can recall, we had put out an RFP for realtors. And so we awarded it to, blanking out on name, sorry. Marine.
Coldwell Banker,
Yeah, no, it was actually Remax at the time.
okay.
So Marine and Atoll all changed realtor firms and went with Coldwell Banker. And now, her and Dan were basically working together on the project. Dan was doing most of the work. Now they are splitting, so Dan's gonna stay with Coldwell Banker and Marine's gonna go back to Remax. So when they switched from Remax to Coldwell Banker, the two of them were going together. I just assumed council was picking those individuals, not necessarily the realty firm. So we just moved with them. Now they're splitting, so I'm bringing the council, so the direction really is from council. Do we stay with Marine from a Remax perspective, or do we stay with Dan, who did most of the work with Coldwell Banker, which is where we are currently. So looking for direction from council.
Councilor Stepler.
Who's the contract with? Here in East End, who,
Here in East End, Coldwell Banker right now,
and it was just assumed from Remax with the last transition?
yes.
So the discussion really isn't between Dan and Marine, it'd be principal brokers, I would think, because they don't have any side, so it'd be that, you know, I think it should be open. We don't have a Caldwell office in Seaforth anymore. We have a, you know, Remax, they've assumed that lease. But there's also other agents, I think I'm just making it clear that it's not Dan or Marine, it's your two principal brokerages that we have the arranging contract. Because if one of them leaves, then where does our obligation lie?
Any other comments? Councilor
The
Chartrand.
fact that Coldwell has left now and there's no office in town, I would say that we would change it from them to Remax, would be my suggestion.
Any other comments? Staff are looking for direction to move forward, so Councilor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not understanding that this Mr. Britt or Dan?
No, it's not Mr. Prince.
Carter.
Sorry, thank you. Is he not still in town working? No?
No, the office that they were
I don't
in is
know
now
about-
becoming a Remax office. The Coldwell Banker won't be here.
I thought Mr. Coombs, what did Mr. Coombs open then on North Main? Or on, yeah,
Right now, there's a sign in the building you're talking about, Councilor Fisher, that they have moved to the Caldwell office, so basically just paying rent in a vacant building.
so there's only 3 on Main Street, not 4.
Correct.
Oh, I missed that, okay,
Yeah, that just all happened recently.
okay, thank
We
you.
also have a Culligan office, we also have a Royal LePage office,
We did go to competitive process, and I don't suggest that we change, I wouldn't suggest going back out to an RFP. I don't think it would provide us value. I think it's just a matter of, what does council want to do?
I'll second Ray's motion.
Which was, please,
My motion was to go with Remax. Maureen. We're not really going with the name, we're going with the real estate agent.
Remax, we're going with Remax.
when we awarded that a couple of years ago, did we have a time frame on it?
No. We just had basically retained a realtor to help us with any surplus properties, obviously with our houses.
I thought we had a time frame. Okay, should we have a time frame?
Yeah, I mean, typically what you would do is try to review it to make sure you're getting good value for dollar from the standpoint, but I mean, you're looking at real estate fees, and so you're just getting a discount on your real estate fees, and everybody, when we went out to RFP, was giving the same real estate fee, so the end council was just selecting based upon who they felt would provide the best interest in this reality.
Yeah.
And local.
Okay, I have a mover and a seconder for Remax. Any final questions? All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. Can I have a mover and a seconder to introduce bylaw? Do I introduce them or do I just do
No,
the
just go
first?
right to them.
Right to the first bylaw. Mover and a seconder, please. Councilor McGrath, Deputy Mayor. That be it hereby resolved that bylaw 89 of 2024, a bylaw for the Brewer Municipal Drain be given final readings and signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed to. All those in favor? Motion carries. Mover and a seconder for bylaw 90, moved by Councillor Wilby, second by Councillor Deal, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 90 of 2024, why does it say 2024?
These are final readings for the
Oh, okay.
Brewer and Holland Anderson, so that happens when we award the tender.
Okay, a bylaw for the Holland Anderson Municipal Drain be given final readings and signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed to. All those in favor? Motion carries. Mover and a seconder for bylaw 5. Moved by Councillor Chartrand, second by Councillor Morrison, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 5 of 2025, a bylaw to appoint a treasurer be given first, second, third, and final readings and signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed to. All those in favor? Motion carries. Guess you got a job. Okay.
Come back.
Mover and a seconder for bylaw 6. Moved by Councillor Fisher, second by Councillor Deal, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 6 of 2025, a bylaw for the Balfour, am I pronouncing that right? Balfour? Okay, Balfour Municipal Drain, be given first, second, third, and final readings and signed by the mayor and the clerk. All those in favor? Motion carries. Mover and a seconder for bylaw 7. Moved by Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Morrison, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 7 of 2025, a bylaw for municipal drain number 5 be given first, second, third, and final readings and signed by the mayor and the clerk. All those in favor? Carried. Mover and a seconder for bylaw 8. Councillor Deal and Councillor Newell, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 8 of 2025, a bylaw authorize the borrowing of money to meet current expenditures to be given first, second, third, and final readings, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? And motion carries. Mover and a seconder for bylaw 9. Councillor Chartrand and Councillor Deal, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 9 of 2025, a bylaw to provide for interim tax levies for 2025 be given first, second, third, and final readings, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed to. All those in favor? Motion carries. Mover and a seconder for bylaw 10. Councillor Deal, Councillor Dalton, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 10 of 2025, a bylaw to exempt certain lands from part lot control be given first, second, third, and final readings, and signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed to. All those in favor? Carried. Mover and a seconder for bylaw 11, Councillor Morrison, Councillor Wilby, a bylaw to establish an emergency management program and emergency response plan to be given first, second, third, and final readings, and signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed to. All those in favor? Carried. And a mover and a seconder for bylaw 12, Councillor Deal and Councillor McGrath, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 12 of 2025, a bylaw to establish and regulate the Huron East Fire Department be given first, second, third, and final readings, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed to. All those in favor? And motion carries. And at this point, since we have not finished our closed meeting for the evening, thank you very much to staff. And I need a mover and a seconder to go back into close. Moved by Councillor Deal, second by Councillor Steffler. The closed meeting of council be held on Tuesday, February 4th, 2025, restarting at 7:30 in the Town Hall Council Chamber, in accordance with section 239 of the Municipal Act 2001 for the purpose of the following matters. 239, paragraph 2, subsection C, proposed or pending disposition of land in Seaforth. And then CEO Brett McRoberts and Clerk Jessica Brody remain in the closed session. All those in favor?